Welcome to our web seminar on offsets in Traverse PC. Glad you were all able to join me today. And what we're looking at here, what you should be seeing on your screen here, is a small subdivision that we did down in Dune City a few years back. This is south of Florence. There's 16 lots here, and I simplified the file. I got rid of some stuff, did a little bit of modifications to it, just so that I can use one file to illustrate all of the different tools that we're going to be looking at here. So we're looking at all of the different offsets that we can do in Traverse PC today. And we're going to start with the automatic lot setbacks. So to get started here, I want to take a look at survey information. I'm going to go to Tools, Survey Information, right here. Now there's more than one way to get here. You can get there through the Tasks Manager. If I go to the Tasks Manager, right down here, Edit Survey Information, same thing. Click on this. Brings you into the survey information dialog box. This is the dialog box you should all be familiar with. This is where you set up your file to begin with, you know, your coordinate reference system, file name, whatever you want to fill in here. In addition, there's setbacks here, and you can see that this file, this survey, was set to 15-foot front, 10-foot side, 10-foot rear. All right, so that's the way this survey is initially set. I'm going to make some changes here just so that it will be easy to see what's going on. So I'm just arbitrarily picking some numbers. I'm going to set the front to 30 feet, sides I'll leave at 10, and rear I'm going to set to 20. So I've got 30, 10, 20. So remember that. There'll be a quiz in just a moment, just kidding. So 30, 10, 20. I'm going to say OK. And now let's take a look at our lot traverses. There are 16 lot traverses here. And right here, lot 1 through lot 16. I'm going to go ahead and select all 16 lot traverses. And I'm going to right-click them and go to Traverse Properties. This is Traverse Properties, not Drawing Settings, not Traverse Formats, Properties. When I go to Properties, I have the Setbacks tab here, and notice that it is set the way that the file was set initially. This is because when your file is set to something, whenever you create a new traverse, it will automatically pick up whatever that file is set to. So these were set when these traverses were created. Now, if I were to create a new traverse, it would pick up the new settings. But because these were created before I changed it, they have the old settings. So I could come in here, notice that I'm working on 16 traverses, and I could manually edit these, or I could recall some settings. This is important. Maybe you work in several different jurisdictions with different setback requirements. Well, no problem. You can store different settings for those different jurisdictions and then simply recall them when you're working in those specific jurisdictions. In this case, I'm just going to click Reset, and it asks, you want to reset to the survey settings? Yes, that's exactly what I want. I'll say yes. So now it has front 30, side 10, rear 20, just like we set for the file. I'll go ahead and choose OK. Now, right now, we're not seeing those setback lines displayed. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Traverses Manager. These 16 traverses are still selected, so I'm going to right-click, and this time I'm going to choose Traverse Drawing Settings. All right, and waiting for it. Hello. Okay, so now I'll go to the Setbacks tab, and notice I'm working on 16 selected traverses. So I'm setting them all at the same time. I'm just going to choose something here. And let's make them red so we can see them easily. And we'll just choose OK. So now you can see that all 16 lots have setbacks on them. Let's zoom in on these northernmost lots. We're going to start working in this area. All right, so what you'll see here is that all of the setbacks are identical. Even though we've told Traverse PC that we want 30 front, 10 side, 20 rear, Traverse PC has no way of knowing what's front, what's rear, etc. And so for the most part, you'll always have more sides than front or rear, because a typical lot is going to have one front, one rear, and two sides. So Traverse PC, by default, we're going to label all of these as sides initially, and then it's up to you to tell the program what's what. So how do we do that? And there are a couple of ways to do that. Let's take a look at lot 5. All right, so first thing I need to tell you is this is a road center line. This red line out here, this is a road center line, this is a road center line, this is a road center line. So if we look at lot 5, really it has all front and one side. All right, so I need to set all of these to front, which is the 30-foot setbacks. So what I'm going to do this time, and like I said, there's more than one way to do this, I'm going to go to Select Objects, and I'll simply click on the front property lines to select them. You see they go silver or gray. That indicates they're selected. I'll right-click to end selection, and now I'm going to right-click on any of those selected objects, and I'm going to choose Specify Setback Type. I want these all to be front, so I'll choose front, and I'll regenerate the drawing. And so now you can see I've got the 30-foot setbacks on all of the front, and then 10 feet on the one side. So it's very easy to set up what you need here. So it would be very easy then, if I chose to, I could come in, do Select Objects, and just work through this entire subdivision, selecting all of the front lines, and go through all the rest, get them all selected, and then right-click to end selection, right-click one of the selected lines, and tell it that it is front. We'll regenerate, and now we see 30-foot setbacks on the front. All right, now we've got some backs here. Let's go ahead and select some backs. We'll do it the same way. Select this one, let's get this one, and this one. All right, we'll make these back. I'll right-click to end selection, right-click one of these, and make them rear. We'll go ahead and regenerate. So now those are 20-foot rear setbacks, 10-foot side, and 30-foot front. All right, so that's one way to do it. It's a very simple, very effective way to do it. All right, let's go down to the other end of this project. Let's look at another method. Let's take a look at lot 1 here. So I'm going to right-click on anything being drawn by lot 1, and I'm going to say Edit Traverse. This takes me into that traverse view. If you're not familiar with it, I right-clicked on this line close to this point, so it took me right into that point. So this point down here must be 739, and it is. All right. So you can right-click on anything being drawn by a drawing, by a traverse, like this line. Right-click this, Edit Traverse, takes me right to the closest point in that traverse. All right. So if you're not familiar with that, that's a real handy way of figuring out what's what. Makes it real easy. Anyhow, the reason I came to the traverse view is that you may not be aware of this. If I go to View, Format View, and by the way, the hotkey is F9, and I'll be using that a bit later. I'm going to go to Format View. What I'm looking for is setback types in this chart, and I see them over here. This lowercase l is setback type. I'm going to add a lowercase l to my traverse format. Whoops, lowercase, hello. Lowercase l, and keep in mind, if you're always doing lot setbacks, go ahead and save your format so that it's always in here when you choose that format. Choose OK. Let's go ahead and maximize and then auto size. And now we see the setback type for these lines. All right. So the way this works, well, I want my curve to be front. So I'm going to click here on the PT, and I'm just going to type the letter F for front. All right, so that's a front. Now, these are going to be sides. Let's call this one a rear. So this one is this line here. Let's call that a rear. So I'm going to type R for rear and hit enter. So that's going to be a rear. And then this one down here will also be a front. So I'll click down here, make this a front, hit enter. Now we'll come over and regenerate the drawing, and I've got 30 on the front, 20 on the rear, 10 on the side, 30 front, 10, 10 sides. So this is another way you can do it right here in the traverse view. So you may want to format your traverses to display this, even if you are selecting them graphically and telling Traverse PC what to do. All right. And once again, I could always go back to the Traverses Manager and select all these traverses, go into Traverse Traverse View Formats this time. See, we've done Properties, Settings, and Format. And I want to set the format for these 16 traverses, right? 16 selected traverses. I want to add the lowercase l for all of them. Do that. So now, if I were to go back into this traverse, edit traverse, we see those ones that were set to fronts and the ones that are set to side, etc. All right? Now, I do need to caution you that automatic lot setbacks won't work in every configuration. All right? And it's just certain configurations that just not smart enough to handle. All right? So let's take a look at this lot here. And you can see right here, our setback is exactly half the distance of this. Now, there are a couple of things I might be able to do. One of the things I could try here is I could right-click on this line, specify setback type, and I could say none. Let's see how that does. Let's go ahead and regenerate. Okay, well, it kind of sort of did it, but not quite. All right, so it's just not quite smart enough to handle this flagpole that we got going on here. So there's something else we can do here. And this may be something that you've never thought of. So the first thing I would want to do is I would want to get everything set to what it needs to be. So I would go through and let's select these guys. This is going to be I'm going to do all the rears. So that's a rear, that's a rear, 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 and sides. They're already set to sides. This is side. All right, so that's all good. I'm going to set these to rears. Sorry, got lost in the menu. Rear. And regenerate. So now everything's looking good except this little thing here. All right, what are we going to do about this? I don't know how to handle it by specifying none or front. Nothing is going to help this with this configuration. I just can't do it. The tool is not capable of doing this one. So what do? here's what I do. And there are a couple of ways to do this, but here's what I would do. I'm going to select objects, and I'm just going to walk around and select all of these setback lines. Make sure I get them all, including down here. I'm using the control key to get the right one here. Okay, they're all selected. I'm going to right-click End Selection. Now, here's the trick. This is an automatic setback line, but what I can do with it, I can right-click these. They are now selected. I can right-click them, and I can convert this to survey. So this is lot 11, so I'm going to say manual, whoops, can't type. Let's try that again. Manual setbacks, lot 11. All right. Tell it where I want it in the list. What's my traverse view format I'm going to want, which is probably just deed. And if I've stored the setbacks with the deed format, they will be in that format. How do I want it to display? Let's choose setback lines. Now it's not going to be red. And I'm just going to say OK. So now what has happened? Let's go ahead and go into the traverse drawing settings for this traverse. Let's turn off those setback lines. No lines. Okay. And now let's go to the Traverses Manager, and what we're going to find is this new traverse, Manual Setbacks Lot 11. I'm going to tag it, and look at that. It's just like what we had. Now I just need to fix this little hiccup. So I'm going to right-click on that, Edit Traverse. It jumps me right into that point, which just happens to be the starting and ending point of that traverse. All right, so I'm just going to delete that point to start the traverse, come down, and at the end, I'm not going to delete this. What I'll do instead is I'll recall the starting point of 31,925, 31925. I'm going to hit my up arrow key on the keyboard. Little tip for you here, if you don't want the extra point, which I don't, if I hit enter, it'll give me another point. I'm going to hit up arrow instead and then enter. So it didn't give me that extra point to get rid of. And now I've got my setbacks exactly where I want them. So this is probably the easiest way of dealing with a traverse where it doesn't work for you. All right, but there is another way. All right, so let's show you another way. Let's go ahead and use, let's use lot 2 for this one. All right, so for whatever reason we say lot 2 isn't working right, we want to create the whole thing manually. Let's get rid of these lines. So we'll go into Traverse Drawing Settings for lot 2, and we'll turn off those setback lines. So how would we, from scratch, create lot 2's setback lines? First thing we're going to do, we're going to edit traverse. Right click on a line, edit traverse. We're in the traverse for lot 2. All right. And I'm going to choose a Kogo tool here. And this Kogo tool, this is one of the screwdrivers. I probably talked to all of you about the tools on your workbench. You've got a screwdriver there that you've used for all kinds of things, like, well, you've used it to open cans of paint, you've used it as a pry bar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what I'm about to show you is one of those screwdrivers in the Traverse PC workbench. I'm going to go to Kogo, right-of-way offsets. Right-of-way offsets, that wasn't designed for creating lot setbacks. Well, that's what we're going to use it for. All right, turn this off so that we're going to start basically clear here. So what I've got is I've got a front, I've got another front, side, side, side. 3 fronts, 3 sides. Gosh, let's pick it. I'm either going to start with fronts or start with sides? Either one. Let's start with sides. I'm going to make this actually more difficult than this one would need to be. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to choose inside because I just want inside the lot, whether it's left or right of those lines, I don't care. I want inside. And what I want is 10 feet because that's my side setback. All right. So I want inside 10 feet. I want the entire traverse, lot 2, and I'm going to create a new traverse. I'll go ahead and compute it. So now I have 10-foot offsets. Now notice that's exactly the way the our automatic offset tool worked. All right. But for whatever reason, we've chosen to do this one manually. So now I've got a couple of lines I need to update to 30 feet. I've got 3 lines that need to be 30 feet for the fronts. So I'm going to close this right away, offsets for now. Here's how I'm going to do this. Let's go ahead and change the way this displays. Let's get these bearings off of here. Traverse drawing settings, bearings and distances. We'll get them off the screen, make it a little less cluttered. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to update the location of this point, this point, this point, this point, and this point. Right? All right, so here's how we'll do it. We're going to use the intersection tool. I'm going to pop this up. If you're not aware of this, all of these buttons that point sideways, these are graphic pick buttons. By clicking on these buttons, we're telling Traverse PC that we want to pick the object graphically. And that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't know point numbers, I don't want to type bearings. Okay, so I'm going to click this. I'm going to go from this point. Now I'm closer to the southwest end, so it's going to give me the point at the southwest end. And I want the bearing going to the northeast. Okay, so that's from here going up this way, and I want it to the left of this line 30 feet. So in the offset, I'm going to say minus 30. Now, what am I going to intersect? I'm going to pick it graphically. I want to intersect this line going to the northwest, so I'll pick the southeasterly end. So I've got the northwest bearing, and I want it to the right of that 10 feet. So I'm going to put in a positive 10 here. And yes, there were easier ways to do that, but that's what I wanted to show you. Now, I'm going to click this button because I want to pick this point here. So I'm just going to click on this line close to that point, and I want to update that point. I'll say, okay. I'm not sure why I'm getting this dialog box. I shouldn't, and I'm going to get that written up. So now I've updated that point to 30 feet, 10 feet. So let's do the same on this point over here. Now I'm going to use this same line. So this stuff I can leave alone. All I got to do is change this to this point, and this bearing, maybe they're parallel, maybe they aren't. I'll pick that bearing. And this time it needs to be left of the line 10 feet, minus 10. And then I want to pick the point I'm going to update. So I'm going to click on that guy, and I want to update that point. Okay, okay. And that point is now up to date. All right. So we're getting there. So let's update this point now. Now, this part is all set. I don't need to do anything with this side. This side I need to work with now. So I want to go from this point. Let's go to the southwest. So I'm going to click on the northeast end of the line to get the southwesterly bearing. All right. And negative 30. Yep, that's right. So it'll be to the left of the line. So it'll move it down here. So now I just need to tell it what point to update, and I want to update that point up there. So that's in the right spot now. Okay, so now we're going to get to the tricky part. Here's how this is going to work. we need to intersect this curve. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to totally clear this dialog box at this point because I don't want to reuse any of what I had. And I'm going to say, I'm going to do a bearing curve intersection. So I'm going to go from here on the southwesterly bearing, left 30, and I want to intersect this curve, all right, and this is on the southwesterly bearing as well. The chord bearing on this curve is southwesterly, so I want to go to the left of that, 30. Okay, I hope you followed that. All right, and I have one possible intersection. So I'm going to go click this, and I want that point right there. And yes, I want to update it. And so now that is 30. Now I'm going to do the same thing going this way. So I'm going to keep this the way it is. I'm going to grab here this guy, this bearing, and this will be a positive 30 because it's going northeast. So I'm going to go 30. And, sorry, got lost there. I want to, now it says I have two possible intersections with this one. All right, so let's take and view it. Let's regenerate this. So intersection, yeah, this one is closer. All right, so this is the one I want. I don't want the one way up there. So it's this one right here. So I'm going to turn off that view. And now I'm going to pick the point, let's zoom in again, that I want to update, which is this guy right here, and update it. So now it's in the right spot. But you see we've got more problems, and there are a couple of problems that we have here. One of the problems is that this curve is no longer concentric, all right? It was originally at, about 60 feet? Well, let's see, this is a 40-foot radius, so it was at 50. I need to add another 20 feet to the radius on this. So I'm going to go in, edit traverse, and the radius here, whoops, I need with curves, so I'm going to hit F9. Okay, so that curve was at 50. I need to add 20 to it, so it's going to be a minus 70. All right, so now that's a concentric curve, but I'm still going to have to figure out something here. And actually, I did my intersection wrong. What I should have done is here, this shouldn't have been 30. This should have been 10. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. No, okay, so, beyond endpoint of the curve. Okay, so I'm going to say that. And now let's save. Nope. I'm going to need to, oh yeah, I got it. Okay, so now I've done this manually using the intersection tool to update those points. You can see why I say this would be easier using the other method. What I would, using the other method, I would have set up front, sides, rear, convert them to survey, and then do any edits that I need to do. All right. So that's your automatic lot setbacks. That's manual lot setbacks using a couple of different methods. All right. So now let's take a look. Let's get some of these windows out of the way. Now let's take a look at what the right-of-way offset tool was actually designed for, and let's talk about some of the things you might use it for. All right, right-of-way offset. Really, it's designed for working from road center lines or from one side of a road to another. I use it for sidewalks. If you haven't seen that, I might have a shoot in one side of a sidewalk, and I know it's a 4-foot sidewalk. I'll use a right-of-way offset tool. Let's look at this. This is a road center line. So I'm going to right-click that, and, well, we'll just go down to COGO, right-of-way offsets, and because I right-clicked on that line, it's automatically decided that I want to work on this Clear Lake Road center line. All right, so let's talk about right-of-way offsets. I'm going to turn off inside, pardon me, because there is no inside for this traverse, right? All right, so what do I want? I want both left and right, and my edge of pavement, this is a 40-foot wide road, so I want 20 feet on each side for my edge of pavement. Okay, so I've got left 20, right 20. I could offset elevations if I want, but it's going to pick up my center line elevations unless I tell it differently. I can do multiples here. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I do want description. I want these to be EP for edge of pavement. And we'll create a traverse. I'll go ahead and compute that. And there's my edge of pavement. Now, in addition, I've got 10 feet farther for a total, for a total of 60 feet is my right-of-way. That was my pavement. So now I need to take this to 30 and 30, and we'll go ahead and compute that. And I forgot to change my description, so I'm going to undo that. Okay, so I undid that, and this is actually right-of-way. Now we'll go ahead and recompute that. Oh, we got sideways there, and I didn't pay attention. I'm going to undo that because it accidentally got switched to lot 2 when what I want, okay. So it doesn't have what I want, so I'm going to come over here. These are all things you might run into. I'm going to select that Clear Lake Road center line. I'm going to come over here and refresh this, and now it's picking that up. So these are things that you may run into, all right? But with the undo, no problem. And I saw it right away because I didn't get my lines out here. So I'll go ahead and compute. Ah, that looks better. I got the right descriptions. This is probably the biggest screwdriver we've got in the toolbox. I use this for all kinds of things. You can use multiples. How does this work? If I've got multiples and I'm set to 30, if I say multiple of 3, it's going to give me 30, 60, and 90. If I say 10, 30, 60, 90, 120, etc., all right, up to 300. Okay, so what do I use this for? I'll use this for creating sets of steps, and they can even be curved steps. All right, you can use the right-of-way offset tool in conjunction with the multiple points tool. You use that for steps. You can use it for parking lot striping, all kinds of things you can use the right-of-way offset tool for. It's just, like I say, it's the biggest screwdriver we got in the toolbox. Okay, so that is the right-of-way offsets. Next tool, let's take a look at distance offset. Let's zoom in here a bit. Okay, So I'm going to right click on this line and I'm going to say edit traverse. And we'll look at distance offset here. So this must be 0.7 here. All right. So it's coming from 0.28 down here to 0.7, and then it goes northwest from there. All right. So I want to do a distance and offset, some distance along this line and then offset one way or the other. The way this works is I'm going to choose Kogo, and distance offset is right here. Okay. So I'm going to tell it I want to go from, so I could pick a point and pick a bearing, or I could just pick this line, which is what I'm going to do. Pick the easy way out. So I want that line going northwest, and I want to go 75 feet along it, and then I want to put a point 25 feet to the left of that line, so a negative 25, and then I'll give it a point number. I don't know what point numbers are in use, so I'm just going to type 1, and 1 apparently is not in use. I'll go ahead and save that. Yes, and plot it, and there it is. So 75 feet up, 25 feet left. So that's distance offset. That's how it works. Fairly simple. Now, we're going to look at one that's similar but different. We have another tool, and this is station offsets. All right. It works the same, except that it's based on stationing. All right. So if I go Kogo station offsets, all right, and I say I want to go station 10 plus 50. In other words, I'm going, what, 1,050 feet down along this, boom, and I want to go right 25. Okay. Centerline elevation, copy them to it, that's fine. Let's get the next available point number. So I'm going to type 1, and let's get next available, and okay, and save it. All right, so what Traverse PC has now done is that it has created this new offset point at 10 plus 50 right here. So where is this point? Well, it's going to be down here on the southeast side. Let's get some of these other traverses out of our way so we can see it. And so let's get rid of these right and lefts. And so now you'll see here is our station and offset. 25 feet to the right at station 10 plus 50. Okay, so that's station offsets. Like distance offset, except it starts at 0 plus 0, right, and goes wherever it goes. Okay, next is something that I get questions about fairly regularly. Let's take a look at this north side of this property. So, and I dummied this up. This wasn't really here, but basically what we've got is we've got a fence that is supposedly on the property line. Ever run into that? No, sure you haven't. And you need to find out how much, where is this fence in relation to the property line? What most people gravitate to automatically. Let's go ahead and zoom in here a bit. We'll start here. So what most people gravitate to automatically is offset to line. So let's take a look at that. Offset to line. All right. Line to compute, offset to. So I'm going to pick this property line, this one right there. Okay, so I've got that property line picked, and I want to go from this point out here. All right, so now this is very important. Make sure this is filled in. You have options of perpendicular, north, south, or east, west. Typically, you're going to use perpendicular, but make sure it's filled in. And then there are a couple of things we can do. Right now, we already know that it is 2.58 feet, and we can see that it's south of the line. All right, so we could say do a summary of that, or we could save the point online to display it, whatever. Problem with this is I'm going to have to go through and do each point one at a time, but I can do it. Okay, so I could create a point online and save it, all of that stuff. So that's offset to line. That's what most people go to. That's not what we're going to use. I'm going to show you another method I'm not going to use in this case, but you may use in other cases. This is going to be useful sometimes. This next method I'm going to show you will be useful sometimes as well. So I'm going to draw a dynamic offset. So now it's telling me what to do, and I'm going to use E for end, press and release E, click on that line. So now I'm latched onto that. I'm going to hit a P for perpendicular, click on that line, and there's my drawn dynamic offset. Now you can see that's not really very useful here because it's just so close together, right? That's pretty worthless. And once again, I'd have to do that, just walk along that fence line to get all those in there. So there's one more tool that'll help us with this fence line. All right, I'm going to right click on this fence line, and I am going to go to COGO and choose Offset to Alignment. Now this tool, once again, here's another screwdriver for you. It's for calculating offsets from monuments along an alignment, so, you know, that kind of stuff. All right, well, we're going to use it for calculating the fence relative to the property line. So what do we want to offset? That entire fence line. And what do we want to offset it to? Well, no, I don't want to save. We want to offset it to exterior Sunset Cove. All right, so we're going to check this traverse against this traverse. And we'll go ahead, and you could do a single point, but why would we want to? We'll just do the whole thing, and it tells us that it added this traverse. So we'll go ahead and close this, go to our traverses, and we're going to find that we have a new traverse over here. Right here, alignment offset. We'll go ahead and tag it. And now we have points on the line. All right, so we can come in here and we can tell Traverse PC how to display this alignment offset traverse. All right, now these offsets, my computer's running slow. These offsets are controlled by side shot settings. All right, so we don't want to see point numbers. I don't really want to see symbols. What I will really want to see is just a distance. And dashed line is fine, who cares? And we'll say OK. And I forgot that control points are also being drawn. So this has stations in it because of the nature of the tool. So go back into my traverse drawing settings. And on the control points, I don't want that, and I don't want that. We'll just say OK. So now we can see right here, 1.26 north of the line, 2.58 south, etc. Okay, so offset to alignment, used for calculating how this fence is following the property line. Now notice this was calculated to this line. That's okay. We don't need that. We don't care about that, but all right. The other thing we could do is we could reverse it. We could calculate the property line to the fence line. All right. So a couple of ways you can do this. All right. So that's offset to alignment. It's another one of our screwdrivers. It's not used as often as right-of-way offsets, but you can use it for multiple things. All right, one last offset tool to look at here. Let's zoom out a bit. And let's go ahead and use this house right here. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click this house. This is corner offsets. So I need to go out. They're going to be, they want to pour the foundation here. So I need to do 5-foot offsets from the house corners for the to stake out there. So I'm going to come here, Kogo corner offsets for that house on lot 9. And yeah, I want 5 feet. I can give them a description if I want to. Yeah, like maybe OFS HC9 and compute. We'll go ahead and close this. Once again, I could do an undo and summary, all that stuff. Let's go over to our traverses, and we will now find that we have another traverse somewhere. Actually, I take it back. We don't have another traverse. They're in this traverse. So I'm going to go into traverse drawing settings. Sorry about that. Brain went sideways. Traverse drawing settings. Not worried about control points. I'm worried about side shots. And on my side shots, let's go ahead and put something on there for lines. And let's just display a tick mark. Make it kind of small, smallish. Say OK. And here are our corner offsets. So I've got these corner offsets out here, interior corners like this. So now I can take this traverse, send it out to my data collector, go out and stake out this house. That's it for the automatic lot setbacks and all of the Kogo offsets, other than we didn't get into PLSS. There's one PLSS tool that we're not going to get into. So what's left now is CAD type offsets, if you want to do this. All right, so I took this drawing and I exported a DWG file of this before I did all of this. And if I go to the CAD view here, I can go to File and I'm going to open this. Okay, so here's a CAD file of the same drawing before I did all that other stuff, right? Now, everybody wants to jump into the CAD view and do everything in the CAD view, do all kinds of things in the CAD view. What you have to know is our CAD view is not mature yet. It does not have all the tools in it. So I can't, for example, say jump in here and I forget how this works. Choose a line, say, and offset it. I can't do it. All right, I just don't have the tools here to do all of that stuff. You know, I can send it to the drawing, I can convert to survey, things like that, but I can't do offsets here. So the CAD view is limited. Every now and then I'll get a question about it, and I'll tell them, okay, you can't do that there. Import the CAD file into a drawing and work on it there. All right, so I did that as well. I'm going to go to imported DWG, and just so you No, I mean, this looks the same, right? Looks the same as that file I started with. But these aren't traverse lines. That's just a line. It can be dragged, right? So it's obviously not a traverse line. Okay? So how would I do offsets for this? Let's say I want to do those same offsets for this center line. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And the way I would do this, I would right-click this, and I would go to Modify Objects, and I would offset in the status bar, specify offset distance. Let's go 30 feet. Hit Enter. Specify point to on side to offset. I'll just click on this side of the line, and there's a 30-foot offset. And I would sit here, and I would do the other side and this line and etc., and just walk down this. Now what I would then have to do, I would have to do trims and extends as I go along this to make darn sure that those lines would meet up with each other. So not only is this labor intensive, it's going to take me quite a while to do this. It's labor intensive, and if I miss something, my lines are not going to hook up. Okay, so that's the last offset I've got to show you. And the way that worked, if you missed it the first time, right-click a line, modify objects, and offset. Status bar down here, specify offset distance or enter 0 and left-click. So I'm going to type 30. See it on the status bar, 30, enter, and then click on one side of the line or the other. Specify point on side to offset. I'll click on this side of that, and there is that line up there. Okay, so that's it. Thank you all for joining me.